Hello, and welcome to the Full Send Half Mast Podcast, episode 11. Busy episode tonight. We have overviews of all the races this weekend at Martinsville and at Long Beach with IMSA and IndyCar. We're going to preview the Talladega races this weekend that we Dega boys will be attending. We'll also go over some extra topics, talking points, and some news that's came out as well. And with that being said, we'll just get right into it. My name is Jay, Dega Boys Channel Broadcasting, episode 11. Today's March 17th. We had a fantastic weekend of racing. Just incredible races in mostly the Xfinity and IMSA world. Cup series and truck series, not so much, but we'll get into it. First of all, news Tony Stewart, big Tony Stewart fans out there. He ends up winning his first ever NHRA event in the top alcohol dragsters. So just incredible what this guy can do. Just an amazing talent behind the wheel of anything he's been in. Successful in IndyCar, successful in NASCAR, successful now here in NHRA. So that's just awesome news on that front for Tony Stewart and his whole endeavor in NHRA. I'm not a huge into NHRA, but with Tony Stewart in there, it brings some attention to it, and awesome to see him take a win this weekend. All right, as I said, this weekend we had races with the Xfinity Truck and Cup over in Martinsville, Virginia, and then in Long Beach we had IMSA and IndyCar, which I told you guys that the IMSA race this weekend was going to be the best race in the preview episode, episode 10, and it turned out to be the best race of the weekend, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. But first of all, the truck race, right? This truck race was a rain delayed start. So they start on rain tires. Zane Smith got pole, which I predicted him to win this race in my preview from Thursday. And really, they started on rain tires after the delay, and it was just kind of one of those boring Martinsville races in the truck series, which is surprising to me. Corey Haim ends up sweeping both stages and takes the win. And really, the only major highlight from this whole race was an incident between Tanner Gray and Carson Hocevar. They got into it on the backstretch. It looked like Gray was using up Hocevar. Hocevar didn't like it, and he just flat out decided to dump him. So, very interesting on that front. We have a clip of that. We might be able to show it a little bit later because as of now, I'm the only one here. Tom will be here a little later. I'd like to show that clip when he gets here, and we can kind of talk about it then. But we'll bookmark that for now. We'll come back to it, right? So, like I said, the beginning of the beginning of this podcast, the IMSA race, the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach. This was the one I was looking forward to the most. If you don't watch IMSA, you gotta tune in. This GTP class is just fantastic. An amazing race. Last race with the 12 hours of Sebring, where you had the best four drivers basically come together at the very end of the race with 12 hour or like 19 minutes to go out of a 12-hour race. And that's kind of how I expected this race to go, as you were gonna see kind of a mix of the dominant cars. I didn't think BMW would be very fast, and I obviously did pick Porsche to be very fast. Well, this race started off. We had Acura, the 10 car there with oh man, I'm drawing a blank. Albuquerque and Taylor. They started on pole, and it looked like they were going to be the dominant car. I didn't expect that. I expected the Cadillac team with Bourdais and Van der Sande to be the favorite here, or maybe even the Wheeling Cadillac team to be maybe the second favorite. And lap one, Sebastian Bourdais. We'll show the clip here in a little bit when Tom gets on, but he ended up basically taking himself out lap one of this Grand Prix. Just got out of groove in the marbles going into turn one, looped it around, got into the wall, DNF'd them for the entire race, and my favorite from the weekend got taken out lap one. So it really opened it up to be Acura's dominant race, and they basically led the entire first 40, 50 minutes of the race. You had the Wheeling team 10 minutes into the race after that first collision. He ran a few more laps there with the driver of the 31 car, and they make a pit stop early and do their only driver swap there between Durrani takes over the wheel there at the end, and they were just so far behind after this pit stop where they were just barely hanging on to the lead lap to the Acura, and it kind of ran that way the rest of the race. And it was just a strategy call. They knew they didn't have the pace to beat Acura head to head, so they thought maybe let's just pit early, do our driver swap now. Maybe we'll get a caution later in the event. Uh, and it didn't pan out for them. They just were so far behind in pace, and it opened the door up for BMW and Porsche, which surprised me. I personally didn't see them running well. We saw a strategy call out of when Tandy and Jean Monnet made their driver swap. They were behind the Acura at this point. They do a driver swap. They don't take tires at all, which was crazy for a 100-minute race to not take tires. But as Tom said, tires in IMSA, they're hard as the stone that Jesus walked on, and they really were. They didn't make a tire swap. They swapped drivers, went back on the track, and this actually leaped the Acura when Albuquerque and Ricky Taylor made their swap. They had issues with Ricky Taylor getting his belts on, and put him behind the 8 ball. And the whole last 45 minutes of this race, 50 minutes of this race, he was like 12 seconds back to the Porsche of Tandy there at the end. Or I mean, John Monette was in the wheel after Tandy swapped him there with the no tire call. And 12 seconds back, I just didn't think they were ever going to get back to the Porsche, even on fresh tires. Well, I was wrong, and they did run him down. It took them forever to get by the second Porsche car, the 7. Um, yeah, it probably took them 10 minutes to get by the second Porsche. They were doing their best they could to hold off the Acura, but the Acura was just too fast. Ricky Taylor's an amazing driver. Was able to get past him, and he ran down the primary Porsche there with Jean Monnet. And with 2 laps to go, um, he kind of made a charge for it and sent it into the corner. And yeah, just basically put it right in the wall. 2 laps to go. Ended the race under caution. The Porsche with the upset. Amazing race, amazing finish. Uh, and then you saw Snow in the 1 car and the 27 car in GTP, or GTD, I mean. They were running pretty much back and forth the whole race, and they were within a second at the finish. But Snow and Sellers were able to hold on for the three-peat at Long Beach. And then in the GTPD Pro class was just a landslide. The 14 um, Lexus was able to just kind of control that whole race. They were up by like 5 seconds at the end. It wasn't even close in that division. Especially with only 5 cars, it just really wasn't much of a race. But the battle between the 27 and the 1 in GTD was pretty exciting, and for Madison Snow and Sellers to hang on to win was very impressive. Um, and like I said, in the GTD Pro class, Hawksworth and Barncoat and the Lexus, they end up winning that division. So great race out of the IMSA world. I'm really excited. The next race they go to is Laguna Seca in mid-May. Super excited about that. It's a 2-hour, 40-minute event, and I just can't wait. This GTP Pro class or GTP class is just amazing. These cars are just fantastic. They're so hard to drive. These drivers push them to their limits, and I mean they just put on a great performance at the end of these races. They just seem to find each other, and with the pace that we saw out of Porsche and BMW this weekend, maybe they found something to compete with these Acuras and Cadillacs, and it'll be interesting to see where they go forward here. We'll take a look at the points later on down in this. Actually, we'll take a look at the points now. Why not? So after this race, the points overall in the GTP class, you have the Jean Monnet and Tandy. They are currently the points leader for Penske Porsche, 1 point over the Wheeland Cadillac team with Durrani and Sims. And then they are 20 points ahead of Albuquerque and Ricky Taylor, which is the Wayne Taylor Acura team. And then fourth is the BMW with Felipe and Yeleni, and they're only 21 points off the lead. And then you have Felipe Nasser and Campbell. They're at 879, only 76 points back, and they're also in the Penske Porsche, right? The one you don't see here is the Chip Ganassi Cadillac there with Bourdais and Vandersand. After they DNF'd in this race, they weren't able to complete any more than the first 200-300 yards of this race. Really puts them in a hole in the points. It's going to be a hard way to climb out of it, but if anybody's capable of it, it's definitely them. They've got the pace, they've got the speed, they've shown it all year, and they'll probably contend for some wins here later on in the season. Um, After that, we have the Xfinity race, which was right after that at Martinsville. It was the call 811.com before you dig 250. Cole Custer was on pole. Nemechek was able to get past him on lap 6 and went green the whole way. He won stage 1. Josh Berry was kind of mired in the back, so he did a strategy call here to flip track position and was able to maintain the lead for a while. But then Nemechek was able to get back by him on lap 109, went on to win stage 2. Um, then we had a few cautions here and there, like on lap 136 with Joe Graff Jr. and Ryan Ellis. They got together, and at this time, it saved Barry's race because he had pitted and his right front tire was down. And so, if the grace that caution didn't come out, he would have been multiple laps down to come and assess that tire damage. Fortunate for him, caution came out. He was able to come and get a new tire, but overall wasn't much of a factor. Wasn't able to drive back up to Nemechek. The Nemechek car was just so fast. It was him, Custer up in the front of this race pretty much the whole way. We had a caution with 42 to go, and Clements had a tire down. Allgaier stayed out because he pitted earlier to try and flip strategy, but on them old tires was kind of a sit and duck. I think he only faded only to like sixth, so just incredible by him to maintain that track position with the old tires with like 40 something laps to go. But we kind of saw that as the theme of the weekend, and we'll get into that more with the Cup race. Um, and Yeah, Sam Mayer and Herbst. Another big collision, right? You had Ryan Truex on the inside. You had it forced Herbst and Mayer into a 3 wide situation. Got into Sam Mayer, turned Sam Mayer up into Riley Herbst. Both were running in the top 10 easily all day, and they both get a DNF. You saw Mayer show his displeasure with Truex and gave him the prized finger there. After their towing his car off the track. So that was pretty dang interesting. And and Truex really was like, I mean, what am I gonna do, right? It is what it is. So that was very interesting there. And yeah, Nemechek went on to win the race. And funny enough, burns it down doing his burnout on the front stretch. And the first thing he says when he gets out is he thanks his sponsor, Pi Barker Fire and Safety, for their sponsorship. So it's kind of cool that they're putting out the fire on his burned up race car, and his sponsor is a fire and safety company. So I thought that was pretty ironic. Excuse me. And really kind of encapsulates his entire day. Just went up in flame, dominant car, and took the dub. Second of the season. And I could see him moving on to be a championship favorite as we move on through the season. He's definitely got the pace. He's got the experience, got the talent. I wouldn't expect him to fall off or falter here. One guy I do want to talk about, and this kind of is in line with the whole Ryan Blaney issues that we keep mentioning, where we see Blaney as the guy that just having all the bad luck. Nothing can go his way. Nothing's right. Kind of mentioned a little bit at Coda with Sheldon Creed is who I'm talking about. This guy gets turned at the end of the race running top 10. It's just this guy can't buy a break. Like, what is going on with Sheldon Creed? You know he's got the talent. He's got the equipment. You've seen what his teammates been able to do so far this season. And it's just one thing after another with Creed, and he just can't escape this cloud of bad luck that's just hovering over him right now. Um, I don't know what it is. I mean, he lights the world on fire in ARCA, lights the world on fire in trucks. Last year, as a rookie, I mean, he made inroads and was getting so much faster as the season went on. Few times, like 3 or 4 times, he probably could have won a race, and just nothing went his way. And this year already, it's just every time he's got a good run going, just something bad happens, and just to take him out. And it's I don't understand what's going on there with Creed, and it's tough to see, and he's someone with a lot of talent. I personally like watching Creed. I think he's fun to watch. He's a wheelman, and with his experience in the stadium super trucks and his transition to stock cars has just been fantastic. And he's a guy that I just know that if he can put one of these races together and get to victory lane, he's gonna win a lot of races at this Xfinity level. He's going to be a championship contender. And I think he's going to be a championship contender before the end of this year. He just needs to escape this cloud of bad luck. And it it could be a mix of things. It could be just not his year. He's got fast cars. I don't know what's going on with Creed. I feel bad for him. I really feel bad for him. I saw his post race interview, and he just looked defeated. He just looked like a defeated race car driver, and that's not a good sign. It's either he's going to be on the spectrum with Priest, where we'll talk about this later, but it's either lighting a fire underneath him to succeed, or this could be the crossroads where it just his NASCAR career might just not pan out. And I guess we'll just have to see where we go from here, right? Just have to see where we go from here. With that being said, we'll move straight to the IndyCar Grand Prix of Long Beach. Kyle Kirkwood lands pole position with Andretti Autosport. Hasn't won a race in his career. Wins the pole in pretty much dominant fashion, which surprised me because I had Pato O'Ward and I had Sebastian Bourdais being the two favorites here. But then again, you can't count out Newgarden either. So really, that's what the race was about. We had Castro Neves lap one. Um, Kind of just the same scenario as Bourdais, except for Bourdais did it down the straightaway before turn one, got in the marbles, and spun. And with Castro Neves, he gets through turn one, gets back on the gas, and when he put the power down, just lost it, just absolutely lost it. It just looked like one of those older race car drivers just losing their touch, and just went around there and put it in the wall. DNF lap one. And then we saw lap 20. We had Scott Dixon and Pato O'Ward, the guy I was mentioned to be one of the favorites. Pato O'Ward this race just turned himself into an absolute bonehead. There the multiple incidents in this race, but the first one here with we'll show the clip when Tom gets on. We'll talk about it more, but he basically gets into Dixon and forced Dixon off the track into the tire wall. Really just killed his race. Not Pato's. Pato drove off just fine, but Dixon's race was done from that point on. Um, and then we have lap 26 on the restart. We have some guys staying out after that incident on old tires, and it just didn't pan out for them. Pato O'Ward was right behind Kirkwood and Newgarden there, as Newgarden was cycled to the lead after that, which looked like he took the control of the race over Kirkwood. And yeah, Pato O'Ward sent it on the inside line there. Same place that he took out Dixon and looped that thing around and took himself completely out of the race. Just absolutely boneheaded moves by him. I don't know what he was doing. It's not something I expect from a championship contender such as himself, someone that had the championship lead coming in, someone with all the momentum, two back-to-back runner-up finishes to start the season, and then just completely loses his mind in this race. It was just a tough one to watch, especially for someone like I pull for Pato. I don't really pull for anybody in particular, but I mean I pull for someone like Pato. He's someone to pull for. He's an aggressive driver who gives it all he's got. He's got a lot of talent. He's fun to watch. You know, someone you want to it's something you want to see out of a race car driver. You want to see someone that's willing to push it to that extra edge, that other people aren't willing to put it in. And he did that in this race, but just not using his head in situations where you don't need to be doing moves like that aggressive at this time, and just took himself out of the race. And like I said, with this whole these guys out on old tires, Newgarden took the lead, like I said, right? He kind of checked off and was gone. It wasn't until a pit sequence later in the race with 31 to go where Kirkwood got the lead back. Cycled past him on the pit stop sequence. He ran right there with Newgarden pretty much that entire run. And Kirkwood got the lead and took off and won. First career win for Kirkwood. Congratulations to him. Did not see that coming. Me and Tom were in shock, or at least Tom was definitely in shock. He's like, "Who won the race?" I was like, "Kyle Kirkwood." He's like, "No way." So when he gets on, we'll let him talk about that a little bit and see what he has to say about that. But yep, Kirkwood wins. Big shocker, big upset there in the IndyCar world. So that was cool to see. Point standings for IndyCar after this race. We have Marcus Ericsson vaults past Pato O'Ward for the points lead. He's got him by 15 points right now. So Pato O'Ward, well, Ericsson finished third. So Pato O'Ward having all these incidents really was a detriment to his title hopes in this race. I know it's a long season, but you can't make this become a habit or a trend. So maybe it was just chalking up to a bad race for him, and we'll see where he goes from there. Um, we have Alex Palou. He's third in points, only 19 back from Ericsson. So he's having a very quiet, consistent season this year as well. So we'll have to see where that one goes with Palou. Um, I guess now it's the Cup Series, right? The NOCO 400 at Martinsville. Last year the races there were just not that good. I think the only highlight you had from the entire year last year from Martinsville was the Ross Chastain wall ride. Well, they outlawed that, so that wasn't going to be a factor. So where was your entertainment value going to come from? Because these tires that they have just don't wear. They don't wear at all. I don't know why they made tires that are just this solid, as we saw with Allgaier in the Xfinity race. Usually Xfinity race, even when the tires are just as good as ever, you see better cars cycle to the front, and it's just with these next gen cars, they just it turns into a line, a train around the bottom. It kind of turns into a short track version of like Dale Jr. lead him around the charge at Talladega or Daytona, right? That's what it turned into. It's just there was no tire fall off, so it didn't allow people to come and go through the field. If you had track position, you were gonna hold and maintain it. Beginning of this race, Ryan Preece wins the pole. Like we talked about with last week's review, we were saying maybe he's got a chip on his shoulder. Tom thought it was gonna be a bad chip on his shoulder, right? If you have a chip on your shoulder, it's gonna be bad karma. You're gonna have bad luck in the next race. And I said no. I was on the other end of that spectrum. I said I think he's gonna run good now. I think that he stood up for himself. He's finally gonna put some runs together. He's got the talent. We haven't seen the speed out of his cars, but I mean, he's one of those drivers that you just know if they get the right combination, he's gonna win races. And I thought this was his week to break through, and it goes out and wins pole. So I was good on that pick. And then with of him doing well, I put him on my fantasy lineup and wins stage one, event free stage one. Um, Stage two starts again. He's still the leader. He's led all the way up until like lap 133. And Burton goes around middle of stage two, and the 41 car, the 19, and the 23. So Priest, Truex, and Bubba all get speeding penalties. And we've seen in this race, if you were in the back, you weren't going to make your way to the front. We saw, I think it was Blaney started 29th, drove to 13th by the end of stage one. And then we saw Bowman start 23rd to drive up to 4th by the middle of stage two. So those were really the only two guys that were able to move through the field, and that was at the beginning of the race. Once the race got on, we didn't see anybody else drive through the field, not at all. We saw Logano and Chastain at the end of stage one, nearly a lap down. I mean, just hanging on for dear life out there, and it just wasn't panning out for either of them. And yeah, it was just no way they could make up ground. Starting in the back, they were just doomed. There was just nothing they could do. They're pinned. They're trapped, as you would want to say. Um, I guess after that caution comes out, when Priest is leading the race, gets a speeding penalty to the back, is like his race is done. It was going to be some type of crazy race for him to get back, and we just weren't seeing it. It was a pretty clean race for the most part, not a lot of issues. We saw Chastain stay out at this time, right? He was on the cusp of going a lap down at the end of stage one, decides to stay out on 40 lap old tires. He ends up leading this race for a good majority of that second stage, and then got passed late by Harvick on lap 168. This was like 12 laps before the end of the first stage. So Harvick goes on and wins stage two. This was his first stage win since 2020, I think they said, which is mind blowing. But then again, I mean, we haven't seen anything out of Ford really the last 2 years. But if you take away Logano's championship, I mean, really, there's nothing there for Ford. Ford's just been terrible, especially this year in particular. They've just been awful. And Stuart Haas showed muscle today. Or yesterday. I was so shocked. You had Almirola, you had Priest, you had Harvick, all running up front, just putting on a well of a show. Um, Really outperforming their equipment. Or maybe their equipment was good. I don't know, but it felt like they were outperforming their equipment, at least by my expectations and the expectations everybody should have after the year that they've had. Just atrocious, right? Um, Harvick wins stage two. Briscoe ends up winning the race off pit road. Ends up leading this race for a majority of it. Hamlin ends up passing him on lap 258, so quite a way into the run. And Hamlin looked like he had the best car to beat at this point. Um, I think if things would have played out better for him, he probably would have won. I think he was the best car, but I mean, it's just the way this race played out at the end. Just it was weird. It was a weird race, and I don't know how we got to the finish. We'll get to that here in a second, but it's just a weird race. Um, I had a caution with 98 to go, and this shuffled the order again. I mean, it was just like every time there'd be a rhythm to the race, he'd get a caution, then pit stops, and people staying out for track position. It would just shuffle everything around. Um, Somehow Briscoe, out of all this, gets back to the lead with 58 to go, and if it stays green, Briscoe wins this race. But it didn't because we had a tire go down on Yaley with 58 to go, and uh, or it's like 50 or with like 50 laps to go, caution comes out with a flat tire. Briscoe decides to pit, and at this point you had Logano who ran pretty much like 25th all day, or outside the top 20, like high 20s, just no pace at all. He decides to stay out, which was a brilliant move here, right? I mean, what do you have to lose with 40 something laps to go? I mean, you're gonna improve your finish immensely by just staying out, because we saw that if you had track position, you're gonna maintain it. Well, you might not maintain exactly where you're running, but you're not gonna fall all the way back. It's not gonna be like falling off a cliff, you know? Like, where did he go? So him, Almirola, and Hamlin stay out, but Hamlin just, I don't know if that set of tires just weren't working for him, but he faded. Almirola faded, and Logano was able to maintain the lead there for a while, and then Larson was able to get by him there with 29 to go, and goes on to win. 21st career win, 14th win this decade for Larson, which is just an insane stat. I don't know if you guys knew that or not. I kind of keep track of that stuff. Um, so the all-time or the winningest driver this decade becomes the only driver without a win for Hendrick Motorsports, current driver at least, for Hendrick not to win at Martinsville, ends up getting the win. And I honestly don't know how he won the race. I'm still trying to figure it out. It was like ran probably 6th to 10th all day. Not really a factor. None of the Hendrick cars were a factor, really. You saw glimpses of Byron early on, faded. Elliott came on late. Bowman was up there in the first stage, faded instantly. Larson ran 6th to 10th all day. It really looked like it was between Hamlin and the SHR cars, and somehow Logano finished a second. I think before they got that restart there, like 58 to go, I think his average running position was like mid 20s all day, and finished second. So that's a driver of the week nominee there for Logano, without a doubt. I mean, it not just driver but team, just to fight through adversity. I mean, whatever you think about Logano, I mean, he was able to overcome all of his issues and everything that he was having that day and being buried in the field, and just kind of turned it into a good day. Some days in racing, you're either good or you're lucky, and 100% lucky for Logano there to get that second place finish. Also, we saw a very interesting events with tires, right? We saw Anthony Alfredo have a tire come off with like 100 laps to go there, and they showed him driving back to the pits. It looked like the lug nut was still on the hub. I can't confirm that or deny that. I'm just going off of visually what I saw, and I've replayed the video several times to look at it, and I just cannot detect if that lug nut is still on the hub or not. It's hard to tell. But if it was still on the hub, which I'm gonna go out on a whim and say it wasn't, because I've never seen a tire just like break like that. But if for whatever reason the lug nut was still on, um, and the rim actually broke, I mean, that's a bad look for the manufacturer of these wheels. I mean, I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt and say that the lug nut wasn't tight and the wheel just came off, but um, yeah, just very interesting there. And then we saw Harvick. They go in and make their pit stop there, like 58 laps to go, put on a new tire, and his rim came apart. It was like something got in between the hub and the wheel itself, and like sheared it completely around. You can see all of the aluminum shavings from the aluminum wheel coming apart, and it separated the the wheel from the hub itself, because the wheel was still attached to the hub, but it was shaved around the wheel where it was disconnected, and he somehow was able to guide that thing back to pit road without it coming off, which saved his crew members from getting suspended. Saved really the whole hassle of that ordeal, but took him out because he was running in the top four at this point. You know, he was one of the first cars off on pit road. He was cycled ahead of Larson, so this cost him the win essentially, if you look at it that way. And I just don't know what happened there. It was just super interesting in that front. So um yeah, I'm just baffled with that. I've never seen that before. It was very intriguing, and came back in, put a new scuff on, but like I said, buried in the back of the pack all day. If you were buried, you were buried. I don't know what they can do to make Martinsville good again. They shrunk the race down to 400 miles or 400 laps, and I feel like the race was even worse. Uh, I don't know if Goodyear needs to make a tire that wears on short tracks. I know it's probably bad for branding or um in that sense, because you want to be able to sell tires to people on the street, right? So you don't want your tires to just fall apart in 30 to 40 laps. But then again, if you don't make a tire that wears and you're able to run a set of tires for 300 laps, then you have what we have this weekend, where track position's all that matters, right? And we don't want to see that with racing. What makes racing fun and entertaining is strategy, tire fall off. That's the whole point of the race. Finding ways to gain track position, finding ways to tune your car to be as fast as it can be. Put the car in the or put the race in the driver's hands. Um, how can you fundamentally, racing from its core is you have a start lap, you have an end lap. No matter what happens during the race, you're trying to position yourself to lead that final lap, or that final minute, or however the race is ran, right? Um to have a to not have strategy involved with tire wear just is a terrible look for NASCAR. Especially at Martinsville. I've been saying, I guess I'm a big advocate for running a tracks once a year. I think the only times you should run a track twice is Talladega and Darlington. Those are the best two tracks on the calendar, without a doubt. Change my mind, I don't care. Those are the best tracks. Those are the only two tracks that deserve two races a year on their configuration. Everywhere else just deserves one. So I don't think we need to run two times at Martinsville, and definitely not two times with this type of setup. I would much rather go to a road course. Road course racing in NASCAR is way better anyway, and it's just not the Martinsville of the past where you had tire fall off. I mean, I remember back when Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon would be duking it out for wins at Martinsville with Denny Hamlin even up there. It was, you would see guys be fast early in a run, and then by lap 40, they would, like, the Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, Denny Hamlin were so good at saving their tires and not using a lot of like wheel off corner, and doing a lot of drive off and a lot of sliding, and just basically preserving the tires with throttle tracing, right? And in this race, you just don't have that. You didn't have that anymore. You lost that whole element. You would see guys back in the day go off and lead 35 laps, get way ahead, get into lap traffic, tires would wear out. And then you see Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, Denny Hamlin, you see those type of guys run them back down and take control of the race and kind of dominate. And um, fire off speed wasn't as important back in the day. I think stage breaks have a big factor to do with it. The tires are the major factor here, not having any fall off. I don't know if it's because the amount of downforce these new next gen cars create, which is most of it. That's why they did the whole redo on the car to reduce the amount of downforce that these cars have. But I mean, could we just get a type of tire that wears in 30 laps and goes away? I would love to see that, because then you'd have to set your car up for the back end of a run instead of the front end of a run. And then track position would be that big of a deal. I mean, track position is always going to be a big deal in NASCAR because there's so many cars in a field, and the restarts and being closer to the front on restarts and all that. But can we just get a tire that wears effectively? I just want to see it. So Um, I guess with all those race recaps done, we'll talk about a little bit more of this when Tom gets here. I kind of want to hear his perspective on a couple things. I'll ask him some questions, and if he gets here, we'll show some clips. I'm not sure if he'll be here or not. I've been talking to him. He's got family things he's working on, so we'll see if he gets here later on. But if he does, we'll talk about some of these things. I'll ask him some questions, and then we'll show some clips as well that I don't currently have. But with that being said, we'll do a quick word from our sponsor, W Energy. All right. W Energy, a new neurofactor coffee cherry extract that gives you fast reflexes, concentration without the crash of ordinary canned energy drinks. Try awesome flavors such as Beach and Peach, Galaxy Grenade, and Dub Sludge now. They also have new flavors. You can also buy a starter pack with 2 flavors and a shake cup for an extremely low price. Make sure you use code DEGABOYS at checkout for 10% off. Thank you, Dubby, for your continued sponsorship of the Dega Boys YouTube channel. Alrighty. So, this weekend, very exciting. Talladega. As we've mentioned before in our broadcast, we're going to be at Talladega. Very excited about it. I'll talk about those in a second. But first, I do want to go over the point standings. They haven't changed much, but I think it'd be good to know what the point standings currently are for the Cup Series. Bell maintains his points lead. You have Chastain second, so same as last week, but Chastain gained a lot of points. He's only 5 back now. Harvick's up to third in points, 15 back. Larson 17 back in fourth. Kind of looking like championship favorite at this point with these 2 wins on true tracks you wouldn't expect him to win at. And then Truex is moved up to fifth in points, which is what he did all year last year. Just couldn't find victory lane. Can't find victory lane this year. Somehow came back to finish third, which was just incredible by him. And then for the cut line's getting even tighter. I mean, you got Busher at 206 points. He's 6 points ahead of McDowell, who's in 17th. And also Suarez is tied with McDowell in 17th as well, 6 points back. So that cut line is getting tight, is getting really tight. And with the whole McDowell thing, we talked about it a little bit last week, but I am so impressed with Furniture Row. Front Row Motorsports. Their driver lineup is just phenomenal. Gilliland, again. I mean, if he doesn't have that engine trouble at the end of that race, he's getting another top 10. I think he's one of the most underrated drivers in the Cup Series right now. He's putting this equipment up front. We've seen Nemechek and Alfredo in those cars in the past few years. We saw Tift in that car for a year, and none of them were able to match what Gilliland's been able to do in this car. I've been thoroughly impressed with him. I think that Front Row needs to keep Gilliland, and then they need to find a way to get Zane Smith in there because those are the 2 drivers of their future. Those are 2 drivers that have a lot of talent that you could build around. And then you've got the veteran McDowell. And when McDowell eventually jumps out of his role as being a driver, he'd be somebody that'd be a great driver coach or stay within that organization to mentor drivers, like kind of like David Reagan, someone to keep in the Ford camp that you can rely on because McDowell has shown speed everywhere he's gone. This weekend, the result wasn't exactly the same as it's been. But I mean, when you start knocking off top 10s weekly, your expectation starts to get higher and higher. And when you don't run top 10, I mean, you kind of feel a little disappointed in it. I'm sure he does with this performance, but still, to maintain the pace that he has so far this year with the points is just fantastic on his part. And I am super thrilled for Front Row Motorsports. Alrighty. So now we will do previews for Talladega, the ARCA, Xfinity, and Cup Series. The only races this weekend is the Talladega races. No IMSA, Formula One. Formula One got canceled from China, so they won't be racing. IMSA won't be back until the mid of May, and IndyCar won't be back until the 30th. So, ARCA Series. ARCA race Saturday at Talladega. I think a favorite for this race would be any Venerini car, or the Gibbs entry. I think that they are head over heels, probably the best cars at Super Speedways, probably the best cars in the whole series. So look to any Venerini. Name one. Jesse Love. Just Connor Bosack. I'm not sure. I believe they haven't put entry list. He could be a factor. A dark horse for me in this one. I would love to see it. Taking Malcolm in the middle or Frankie Muniz to be the dark horse in this race. You saw how good he ran at Talladega. I think he's someone that can and will perform this weekend at Talladega. So watch out for him to be up front, maybe lead some laps. And if his cards are played right, maybe he can sneak in and take a win. First career win in the ARCA series. I'm very impressed with how he's done so far this year, especially someone that doesn't have a lot of stock car experience and how like his age too coming in like in like starting as a rookie in his like 30s. That's like unheard of anymore. So um yeah, I would like to see him have a good run. So I'm taking him as my dark horse. Xfinity series. I think you would have to be absolutely out of your mind not to take Austin Hill as your favorite here. He's probably the best super speedway driver probably in all of racing right now. He's just incredible. RCR is going to give him another rocket ship. He's going to find a way to get it in the front early on often. He's going to maintain it. He's so good at watching both lines. He controls the race very well. He's kind of like a Dale Earnhardt Jr. in the sense that when he's in the lead, everybody else just kind of just follows him. Let's follow Austin Hill, And it's going to take teamwork and a lot of effort to get by him at the end because he doesn't make bad blocks. I mean, he does, everybody does, but I haven't seen him make any like really bad aggressive blocks that we've seen out of old hair plugs or as you guys call him, Joey Logano. So watch for Austin Hill to be the dominant car at Talladega. Watch for him to take this win. And for a dark horse here, anybody could be a dark horse. I think you would look at someone like Jeremy Clements. Jeremy Clements won at Daytona last year. He's someone that I would watch out for his dark horse. Brett Moffitt, just his consistent season that he's had so far, he could win. Parker Kligerman, just an exceptional plate racer. He could be a guy to watch to win this race. And he nearly had Atlanta once, so look for him. And then I guess another guy I would like to see have a good run just for his sake, for NASCAR's sake, because he's got a talent and he's someone that we need to see uh in the future of NASCAR is Sheldon Creed. Just hopefully he could turn it around, take the dub this weekend. Um, that's really where I'm looking at. For the Cup Series this weekend, my favorite, I think he's due. Should have had Atlanta one. Got beat by the best car of the race on the last lap. I think Brad Keselowski wins this weekend. He hasn't won a race in a couple years. I think that he finally gets the job done and snags a Talladega win. He's just an exceptional driver at Talladega. I think he's up there with wins with the likes of Dale Earnhardt Jr., and Jeff Gordon at Talladega. He's got this track just figured out. He's in a Ford, so it's hard to say that Ford's going to be good. But we've seen even when they've been bad this year, the super speedways is where they've shined. With Logano taking uh, Atlanta, like I said, and then how good he and Keselowski and Busher ran at Daytona. And I feel like this can be redemption for not getting that 500 win. I think the mistakes that him and Busher made at the end, they're gonna rebound from that. They're gonna work very well together, and Busher's gonna push Keselowski to the win this weekend at Talladega. Another one to watch, I would say, would be Recky Stenhouse Jr. or Recky Spinhouse. I'm putting him on my fantasy this weekend again, just because it's super speedway. He won the 500. And I mean, you don't fluke into 3 super speedway wins. You have to have some skill behind the wheel to do that. So watch for him to be a contender. Logano obviously going to be a contender. Um, I mean, you could take anybody else to be a contender in that one. Dark horse. Oh, that's a tough one. I would like to see Zane Smith have a good run. I think that he is most likely the permanent driver there in that 51 car, which is good for him, which is good for the sport too, because he's so talented and turn the performance around for Rick Ware Racing. I think that he is someone that, in the right scenario with the right help, he could win this race. Or even McDowell. McDowell is him and Gillen are both due for some really good runs, especially with how well they've ran. I mean, you could see them contending for the win late, especially if they get linked together. So yeah, I'm gonna take Zane Smith as my dark horse here, just purely for the fact that his odds of winning are so slim, but he has the talent, and if he gets lined up with those rest of those Fords, who knows? If he can survive the carnage, he could end up in victory lane at the end of this and get his first career win. So we'll just have to wait and see on that one. This week we do not have a radioactive of the week. Just not gonna happen this week because we leave for Talladega Tuesday night, which is tomorrow night. So that's why we had to push this podcast to tonight. We wanted to do it tomorrow night. Fortunately, with time restraints before we go to our Talladega trip, we could not do that. So with that, we'll go into the driver of the week and bonehead of the week nominees. We'll put the polls up for you to vote on them after this podcast. But we have for driver of the week, I'm taking Jominet and Tandy for Porsche Penske in the IMSA race, winning that race without taking tires. They ran a phenomenal race, didn't make any mistakes, maintained their pace the best they could. And ultimately, when Ricky Taylor took himself out, they were there to capitalize and win the race. So congratulations to them. That's driver of the week nominee there. Also in the Xfinity race, I want to take Brett Moffitt as a driver of the week. I didn't really touch on it, but he spun somewhere in the middle of stage 1 or 2, and it looked like he was kind of buried in the pack there. Somehow, Brett Moffitt drives his way all the way up to a P9 in that car. So that was just incredible for him. I think he's one of them underrated drivers that doesn't get a lot of exposure or attention. And I think that he could be someone in the future that could win some races in the Cup Series, or not in the Cup Series, in the Xfinity Series. Granted the right scenarios and situations, and I can see him having some more fantastic runs later on this season. So good job for him coming back to P9. And then, like I mentioned with Logano, ran mid 20s all week to come back and finish second on a race that he just absolutely had no business even being in the top 10. Just impressive. That's what makes him a two-time champion, right? Whatever you think about him or whatnot, I mean, you can't deny his ability behind the wheel, and was able to secure a P2 finish. Boneheads of the week, Bourdais in the IMSA race. He crashed lap 1, which I thought was the favorite. I'm pretty sure he probably would have won this race. Him and Van der Sande would have won the race, but the fact that he wrecked lap 1 for nothing. I mean, even if you concede a spot or two there, it's an hour 40 race. You're gonna have a driver swap. Tires, you could strategize on tires. You would have the pace to win the race. Just to wreck lap 1 and not even give Van der Sande a chance to even make a lap is just boneheaded. It was uncalled for, especially with someone of his caliber and his experience in motor racing. That's just a rookie mistake. That nominates you for bonehead of the week. And then Taylor, with 2 to go, sends it into turn 1. He's way faster. That probably was his chance to win the race there, but I mean, if you're gonna try something like that, why would you try it with 2 to go? Why not set him up for another lap and then try it the next lap? Because it's not like you're gonna fall off of his pace. You're faster. You got the new tires compared to him. I don't understand the full send move there into turn 1. He just ran out of talent and crashed his car. So bonehead move of the week for him. Also, Pato O'Ward with his shenanigans in this race takes out Dixon early on in that race. Then he ends up taking himself out a little, like not even 6 laps later in the same corner. That's just not. It's not how you win championships. So this week he gets a bonehead move of the week, and if he continues this trend, I don't see him competing for a championship this year, which is sad because he's one of those drivers that you just love to watch. So, and that's specifically why I put him on the bonehead move of the week, because you don't championship contenders don't have those two kinds of mistakes there, especially someone of his caliber. Just it's gonna nominate you for bonehead of the week. So, we'll put those polls up after this podcast for you guys to vote on, and we'd like to hear your opinions and thoughts and see what the poll has to say. Um, Also, NASCAR fantasy. My picks and Tom's picks. So for my fantasy, you pick. So it's NASCAR fantasy live. You pick 5 drivers and then matchups. Um, we were not able to do the matchups, but I'll give you my 5 driver lineup, and then I'll give you Tom's 5 driver lineup as well. I got Keselowski and Busher. I picked Keselowski to win. I think Busher's going to be right there with him all day working together. He's going to push him to the win. I'm taking Blaney Blaney's won at Talladega multiple times now. Exceptional super speedway racer, always finds his way at the front at the end of these things. I think he'll survive the carnage. He's good at surviving these races, and that's what it takes. So I got Blaney. I also have Stenhouse, and for the reasons I said, great super speedway racer. You can't win. You can't luck your way into 3 super speedway wins. You have to have some skill there, and I think that he is just the runs that he's had recently. I think he'll definitely find a way to get another good run here at Talladega. And then a pretty underrated super speedway racer. He's won a lot of super speedways in either the trucks and Xfinity, and he also won a Daytona Cup race. Uh, and not a lot of people remember that in 2019, but Justin Haley. So I'm taking for my 5th driver. I haven't taken him at all this year, so I have lots of uses on him. Might as well use him here. Tom, he's also got Keselowski and Busher and Stenhouse, so we're similar there. Then instead of Justin Haley, he's taking a colleague car as well. He's taking AJ Allmendinger. Um, we've seen him run really good at super speedways in the Xfinity series, so that's a solid pick there as well. And I think that him and Justin Haley are going to work well together. Chevys have had a lot of pace and speed this year, so don't count out the colleague cars to maybe win this race. And then he's also got Chase Elliott, and he said he took Chase Elliott specifically because he's back, and even if it takes 51 overtime attempts, they're going to find a way to give Chase Elliott the win. So that's why he's taking Chase Elliott. And unfortunately, we ain't able to give you our matchups. So that's just unfortunate. Um, I guess tonight, after this podcast, in about an hour or so, we're going to be streaming the iRace for NSR, Nexus Sim Racing, the race Motor City Cup at Kansas. I'm sorry, at Kansas, and very excited about that. Very excited to broadcast that race for them. So tune in about an hour. We will be doing that broadcast. Come hang out with us. Come watch some great racing. The best sim racers on iRacing in this league. They put on a fantastic show. I don't expect anything but the best here at with this race at Kansas. So come tune in and check that out. Also, we have Talladega coming up this weekend. Super excited about it. We'll be there, so stay tuned to the channel. We're going to be posting a ton of footage. We'll have a podcast live from Talladega. We won't be able to do it live on location. Well, we're going to be doing it live on location, but it won't be uploaded to YouTube live. We'll have to upload it the next day. So stay tuned on Sunday. You'll be able to see that come out, and you'll be able to watch that. We're going to be filming all kinds of footage this weekend at Talladega. You'll be able to meet all the boys. If you're there, come see us, come visit us. We'd love to see you and hang out with you. Have a beer with us, chat with us, give us your opinions on anything. We'd love to see people that watch the show come see us at Talladega. That'd be fun. Also, this has been episode 11, so crazy the amount of episodes we've done in such a short amount of time. When we get back from Talladega, we're going to change the schedule back to where we'll have streams on Monday, or broadcasts for iRacing on Mondays, Fridays, and Thursdays starting in May. Also in May, we'll be doing some Sundays, and the podcast will purely be on Tuesdays, and we'll probably do one every other Wednesday or every other 3 Wednesdays. We'll do an unfiltered version that we'll put on Patreon for you guys. No holds barred. We're just gonna go and let it all rip, let it all be free, and come watch it on Patreon. Come see a different side of us there. Should have some fun talking points that we would like to go over there. And with that being said, this has been the Full Send Half Mass Podcast, episode 11. My name is Jay, Dega Boys channel. Stay tuned. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a ton. We love your feedback. And stay up to date. Turn your notifications on. We're going to have videos coming out every day while we're gone at Talladega. So keep tuned to the channel. Watch our new videos upcoming. We're going to have some vlogs live from Dega. We're going to have all kinds of cool videos coming out. Once we get back from Dega, check our Patreon out. The link is in the description of this video. Subscribe there. You got so much exclusive stuff you're going to be getting here in the near future, so you're not going to want to miss it. Make sure to subscribe to Patreon. Subscribe to the channel for all your racing, motorsports, news, updates, results, finishes, points, whatever, talking points. You'll find it here on this platform. So thank you again for tuning in to episode 11 of the Full Send Half Mass podcast. My name is Jay, and this has been Real. And enjoy the races this weekend at Talladega. We'll be there. Come visit us. Thank you.
A house or a lap?
Target.